Welcome to another episode of Heater Conversation. It's your host, Peterson Pierre. Super excited that you guys decided to tune in to another episode. We have the cognitive guru, sorry about that, guru here with us, Jason Fulco. He currently resides in Arizona. What he does is he works with athletes and kind of connecting their minds to what they're doing in their sport and kind of giving them an really expanding their mind and perspective on their sport to be able to help them be better at what they do. Super excited to dive in with him and kind of talk about why these are super essential to what he does. Hey, Jason, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. How you doing?
Doing well. I appreciate your time, man. Thank you for joining the podcast today.
Okay, thank you for having me. I mean, I've seen your stuff before. I was super excited when you reached out to me and asked me to be on the podcast. So we're here now. Let's have some fun combo.
Yeah. So I got a couple of questions to kind of start off the podcast. You're going to actually be the first person I'm going to do this with, but I want to do kind of intro, questions. So the first one is, if you could have anyone cook you a meal, who would it be and what would you want them to make you?
Wow, that is a really good question. Let's go with Mark Wahlberg and pizza.
And why is that?
I feel like Mark Wahlberg makes good pizza, and I feel like it'd be a good conversation while the pizza's being made.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. What is your favorite Mark Wahlberg movie?
All right, unpopular opinion. I may get some heat for this, but I'm a big fan of the original Planet of the Apes.
Oh, okay. Very cool. I personally haven't seen it yet, but I'll have to check it out.
Oh, yeah. It came out, I want to say, late 90s, early 2000s. It's probably one of his worst movies he's done, but I'm a big nerd at heart. So it's one of those movies where it catches, it strokes my nerd ego a little bit. I like just talking apes and just how they set it up. So that's my super pleasure.
Yeah, no, it's great. Now, the second question, if you could go see anyone live in concert, dead or alive, who would it be and who would you take with you?
Wow. I'm going to have to go Phil Collins. And I don't know who I would take because, again, Phil Collins, unpopular opinion.
Yeah.
The reason for Phil Collins is he's the GOAT of Disney music, and I'm a big Disney fan.
Yeah. So, with these two questions, just kind of introing a little bit about you, kind of, what is your connection to some of these things? Like growing up as a kid, what made you into Disney? Was that something like you always watched? Were you into like theater, or was that something that you did stuff with your parents a lot of times? And then even with some of these classic movies that you're talking about, is that something that was known in your house to watch a lot of classic movies?
Yeah, man. I'll even say till this day, if I'm going to watch a movie, it's probably from the 90s. I'm a very nostalgic guy, And in terms of theater, I think, as you get older, you realize more about yourself than you knew when you were younger. So now I'm very cultural guy. I like fashion. I love art. I love being in creative spaces. And I think that when I was younger, I always had that, affiliation towards it, but I just never knew it. So
Yeah.
To answer your question, yeah, I guess I love theater. I love the acting. I love the storylines, and it always caught my attention.
Yeah. What is your favorite play that you can go see or that you've seen, either live or even one that's recorded? But I prefer live.
Absolutely. So growing up in New York, obviously we have Broadway shows. So I went to go see Jersey Boys.
Okay.
And Jersey Boys was amazing. The live singing was awesome. The storyline behind the Jersey Boys I never knew. So watching that play really gave me backstory to it. And, I was just like, wow, this is awesome. But Aladdin was dope too, to be honest with you.
Yeah. No, I think that's, for me as a kid in middle school, I was into theater and stuff like that, which actually now I still am. Not as much as I probably could be in regards to going to shows and stuff like that. But I really do appreciate, good musical or good live shows like that, just because of my own personal musical interests. I'm a musician myself, so those things kind of resonate with me. And as a kid, I grew up dancing, like a freestyle dancer. So I really enjoy the arts of things and, being able to see what people do and being in the sport of gymnastics, it's really about appreciating what people can do with their own bodies in regards to, putting on a performance, in with elegance, while also doing these huge dynamic movements that a majority of people just wish that they could do, right? Some of these flips and twists and turns and all these other stuff. And so I think for me, that's probably what drew me into gymnastics, but having the background of liking music and liking arts and stuff like that really kind of made it connect, which, I kind of would want you to talk about how that helps you do what you kind of do right now.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think, like I said, I've always enjoyed being in a creative space. I've always loved movies with puzzles. I've always loved riddles. And, I like using my brain for things, right? I don't like things that don't challenge me mentally. And I've always been that way. I enjoy a challenge. If I'm not good at something, it makes me want to do it 10 times more. So getting into the space that I'm in now, it gives me a lot of creative space and creative control to do these drills and have these progressions with athletes and then be able to kind of, see where we can take it. It's always like a next level with an athlete, a next level with an athlete. And this gives me the ability, the type of training I do, to be able to really see what that ceiling is and push boundaries.
Yeah. Tell me about New Jersey. What was life like in New Jersey, growing up in New Jersey?
Well, actually, I grew up in New York. Jersey, I always went to Jersey, but New York was amazing. So I grew up in Long Island, suburbs. It was smooth. You had, the seasons changed. You had your, leaves change color in the fall.
Yeah.
It got cold in the winter.
Right.
Summer times are always amazing. New York's a really cool place to live because the seasons change. So you really see the dynamics of the people and the culture change as well. Like when summertime comes in New York, everybody's outside. Wintertime comes, everybody has that fast walking pace with a heavy jacket.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see. And now living in Arizona now, we don't have that. So it's like summertime all around. We have 3 months. It's brutal here, but then 10 months out of the 9 months out of the year, or whatever it is, it's the best place to live. You have winter and it's 75 out.
Yeah. Oh, I like it. So what is the journey going from New York to Arizona?
Wow, that's a great question. So I was living in New York and then COVID happened, right? So I didn't know, as everyone else didn't at the time, what was going to happen or, what's next. And in New York, I was training pro athletes and I had a network of pro athletes. And one of my athletes that I trained actually lived in Arizona. His name is Justin Pugh. He plays for the Giants now. And my buddy Afani, who also played for the Arizona Cardinals, there was a point where he's like, yo, I'm going to Arizona. And I was just like, change is good. Let's go see what this hits for. So then I texted my buddy Justin and I was like, hey, I'm coming out to Arizona. He was like, no, you could stay with me for the first week while you're here, see what Arizona hits for, see what shakes out here. And I was like, all right, I came out here, fell in love, never left.
I love it. What part of Arizona are you in?
I'm in Phoenix right now.
Okay. And very cool. No, I like Arizona. I was just there a couple months ago. No, it's a nice place. The only thing for me, I feel like it's dry. And I grew up in similar similar atmosphere in regards to seasons. I grew up in Minnesota, and so I understand the winters and the seasons changing. And being here in Texas now, we kind of it gets hot, but it gets more humid than it does in Arizona. But I enjoyed my time in Arizona. Now, what were some of the sports that you personally did growing up as an athlete, and how did that shape what you're doing now?
Another great question. You're firing off today. I'm going to have to say, I played everything, man. I played everything, from basketball to baseball to tag to hide and seek to manhunt to ping pong, bowling, lacrosse, football. I was a very active kid. I was the kid that as soon as it was acceptable to go outside, I was going outside, knocking on neighbors' doors saying, can we come outside and play?
Yeah.
And I think that molded who I am today with my athletes just by understanding how to relate to athletes. A big thing as a coach for me, it's not just the science. The science is amazing and we can all gain that information. It's really, though, does someone want to be around you for an hour? And if so, why is that?
Yeah.
Right. And I think I learned that being around athletes my entire life, just being able to relate to them, understand that they are people, You know, like they have the same stresses and life tribulations as we do.
Right.
And then, you know, once you get that connection and you understand how somebody learns, right? That's another thing. Understanding how an athlete learns. There's different
Right.
ways of learning, and being able to know the person and know your personnel, as any coach does in any sport, gives you that ability to take them to their highest ceiling by understanding how are they going to take this information.
Yeah. Now, who are some people that did that for you in regards to coaches? Because you had mentioned if someone's willing to be around you for an hour, you know, it means more than just all the information that you know, which I think is very true. Because a lot of times, you know, you could go get all the facts of stuff, but you have to have a connection or a story, you know, or something that draws you in. Who were those people, you know, coaches or mentors or anything like that that really locked you in, and you felt like, you know what, I want to learn from you and I want to be under your leadership and guidance?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was 18, I worked in a facility where we trained athletes, and the owner, his name was Billy Rom. He was one of the smartest people I'd ever meet, and he understood just how to teach. And I saw how he taught his athletes, how he taught his coaches. So I was able to kind of pick out and learn a lot from him. And then we also had a coach that was actually training to be in the NFL. His name's Trevor Costin. And the way that he coached, it was very just like, I'm not just going to coach, I'm going to be relatable.
Yeah.
And the kids and everyone always wanted to be around him. So for me, it was never really one person I took everything from. I'm a educational sponge, right? I
Yeah.
think that it's good to have an open mind when you're doing things and have a good viewpoint on these things, and be able to take information and bits and pieces of every good thing that someone does, you know, and then be able to put that into your own methodologies. You
Yeah.
know, so there's a quote, it's methods are many, principles are few, right? So the principles are the principles, but the methods are going to change based off of the coach and who they are,
Yep.
right? So being able to understand that every coach has their different way of doing things, and not ever talking down to a coach or saying it's wrong, but
Right.
having an open mind and saying, wow, that works. You know, let me try that. Let me do that. And that's what I teach coaches now. So when I coach coaches myself, I talk about the adaptability of not having one way of doing something,
Right.
right? Being very open minded and understanding that there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Now, that coach from the the facility that you worked at when you were 18, what were some of the specific insights that he gave you that you're using and utilizing today that really impacted you and impacts what you do?
Yeah. So he told me it was mainly strength and conditioning. So a really cool thing about me is that I've been in almost every single realm of fitness in the fitness industry you can think of. I've been around personal trainers in terms of I want to lose weight. I've been around physical therapists, chiropractors. I've been around speed coaches. So I've done it all. I've ran a half marathon myself. I've done powerlifting myself. I like to experience the things that I'm coaching,
Yeah.
right? So one big thing that he taught me was programming, understanding how to program and how to progress and how to regress at the right time, when to do a deload week, and when to, you know an athlete's having adaptation, or understanding if your program's not working to change it or tweak it, which is
Yeah.
okay to do.
Right. Right. No, I think those things are really important because in the sport of gymnastics, I think that's one thing too. That's really important. And for me, I still am working on that for gymnasts to be able to build their, in gymnastics, we call it strength and conditioning a lot of times. Um, you know, and mostly on the conditioning aspect to kind of condition their muscles to do, you know, certain shapes and certain lines and always fire, you know, similar. And so, but at the same time, understanding when I should be doing my power um, movements, when I should be doing more of my strength movements or endurance things, you know, being able to know how much core I need to do, so on and so forth, which, you know, can be difficult and could stress athletes more just because there's not an understanding of how to, you know, really build a program for a year or for the season, and understanding the differences between in season training program and out of season training program, and what the benefits are and how to keep these athletes super healthy, you know.
Absolutely.
What are some of the things that you kind of learned in regards to programming, like, or what was some of the things that really got you excited about programming, that really helps you do what you do right now?
Yeah. And every point of a program, you're going to have that breakthrough of where the athlete gets the movement or the athlete gets stronger. And then it's time to progress, right? But in order to get that breakthrough, you have to have a solid foundation.
Mm.
So for me, I love programming and doing these things. I love the foundation, right? Building that foundation in a program. Yeah, we do the fun things later, but that foundation, that cornerstone that you build, that's where, the building's made.
Yeah.
That's where you set everything up to get to those next progressions. And then getting that first aha moment for an athlete, you can see it. Every coach knows what the aha moment is, right?
Yeah.
You see the athlete and it clicks.
Right.
They hear what you say, they get the movement, whatever it may be. And then you look at there and you guys both understand each other. And you both are like, yep, this is it. And
Right.
for them, it's like, this is why I've done this. This is why I do this. This is why I trust you. For you,
Yeah.
it's, this is why I trust you as an athlete. I knew you're going to get to this. Now let's continue to work.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's good. What are some of those foundational corner pieces for you? And you could be as specific or as general as you like. Is it, teaching basic, patterns of landing positions, or just how to, move certain directions, to be able to build off? What are some of those things to you are those foundational pieces?
100%. So now my main focus is I do cognitive training where I train the brain, and I specialize in multidirectional movement. So understanding what multidirectional movement is a science in itself. Proper shin angles, acceleration, deceleration. Can you create stability properly? So for my athletes, we'll always do, like I said, landing mechanics, being able to create proper stability. One thing I always used to do is do a warm up with sneakers off, right? Because I'm a big believer that feet are the foundation, right? That's the first thing that touches the ground in the morning,
Right.
And honestly, our feet are supposed to be like our hands, right? In terms of having space with our digits. The reason they're not is because sneakers were created.
Mm.
So now our feet are more like this, and we've lost the ability to use them properly. And then injuries always happen from the bottom up. It's chain of command, right? If something's tight, it's going to work its way up.
Yes.
So being able to teach my athletes the understanding of what proper landing mechanics and creating stability is amazing in terms of foundational piece of teaching multidirectional movement. In terms of cognitive training, my non-negotiable is the catching the two tennis balls. Yes, I do 20 of those at the beginning of every session. Don't care how long it takes. We're getting 20 in.
Yeah. So why are these so important to what you do? Why are they so fundamental in your cognitive training? And what are you trying to achieve with these?
Yeah. So I train 5 cognitive functions. Okay. Brain speed, your ability to process information, decision making. How well do you make a decision in a panic situation? Focus. How long can you pay attention? Memory. Do you recall what you saw or heard? And then auditory and visual reaction. How well do you react based off what you see and hear? So taking those 5 cognitive functions and using the tennis balls, I challenge those, and I'm able with the tennis balls to add more variables to the drills that we do. So for instance, a wide receiver in football, why do I use 2 tennis balls? Simple enough. When they have to go catch a ball, you have 2 hands. That's 1, 2, right? You have the ball. That's 3. You have the DB guarding them. They're 2 hands. That's 4, 5. That's 5 things in your line of vision while you're trying to catch a football, whether you're running through traffic or you're wide open. So in terms of adding variability, let's catch 2 tennis balls. Let's work on eye discipline tracking. If you can catch 2 tennis balls, you can easily catch a single football.
Yeah. Now, I also notice that you do, other factors, and this could be, adding to that foundation, where I've seen they have to recall certain information on a wall, or you do these big cards where you take a card and you flip it over. They have to say the number, you throw the balls off the wall, then they catch it. There's a Ohio State tight end, I believe, that I seen that you did it with. Can you kind of talk about when you're working on that cognitive functions, how does how do you practically use that? So even with that example, what is all that really doing in regard to those 5 steps that you just mentioned?
Another great question. So doing cognitive training raises your IQ in totality, right? But now we want to raise your IQ within the experiences that you have the most experience in, right? So catching a football, okay? You have to constantly run through traffic and do all these things. So what I want to do is I want to add more variables in my drills to make that harder. So on game day, it's not a panic situation. I almost call it slowing the game down.
Yeah.
Right? So the best way I explain it is if an athlete wants to get stronger, we're going to get a bigger engine for their car. If they want to move better, that's where the body of the car gets nicer. But now there needs to be someone who trains the driver to use the new acceleration, new deceleration, how to turn at those speeds, how to make decisions at those speeds. I'm the guy that trains the driver. So if an athlete goes to a strength and conditioning coach with a go-kart engine and he leaves with a Ferrari engine, we need somebody to teach that athlete how to use that new tool and material they have.
Yeah. No, I think that's good because there's not there's not a lot of people who do what you do that I know of, right? And maybe in the world of cognitive functions training in regards to sports, if there is a lot, because a lot of times, we do drills and skills and we relate it to the sport, right? And they're pretty, I guess, rudimentary, instead of as specific as you're trying to do, or even trying to reach a more to expand the amount of cognitive attention that's needing to happen, right? Because sometimes I could see something and I can do it, right? If you show me a ladder drill, put 1 foot in and I go, right? Or show me a squat, okay, and I go. And that's, building those parts of the vehicle, like you said. But then after that, really knowing what to do with all that and how to apply it to specific things or how to manipulate it, or, even if I'm driving down the road, how I know that I'm going to need to slow down just because I can read traffic that's, so far away. And instead of reading what's right in front of me, I'm reading down there and be like, oh, maybe I need to switch lanes because of this, or, can you kind of dive into that, like why what you do is super important, and even just if there is really a big market, for what you do?
Yeah. So there are cognitive coaches and mental coaches out there. As I said before, methods are many, principles are few. I don't think I found anyone that has used my methodologies yet. And that's just not a pat on my back, but that's just creative control. That's me having fun in the sessions, knowing the athletes I'm working with, knowing what they can and can't do.
Yeah.
And making it enjoyable for them by adding challenges, right? There's percentages on how much failure I want in a session, right? I don't want too much failure in a session, but at the same time, I don't want too much success. I think there's a giant misconception with training now for athletes that I need to be successful when I'm training. That's not necessarily the case. You need to be successful in your game, right? We want to train, and I'd rather you fail in your training with me than make those mistakes in a game. So being able to put my athletes in situations where I'm not going to necessarily mimic an in-game situation, but if I can take a step closer to make that in-game situation a little bit less of a panic situation for you, we're winning. And being able to challenge those cognitive functions, like I said, decision-making, attention, and memory, goes past the on-the-field stuff. Now we're talking about processing information. How many people do we know, and I'm sure you know as well, that aren't going to ever make it to where they want to in their sport? I'm going to use football as an example because they can't get a playbook. Right? So now we're talking about processing information and just learning better.
Yeah.
Right? Being able to focus for a longer period of time. That means I can watch film for longer. Right. If I can watch film for longer, it gives me the ability to see more what I'm doing wrong. And I don't got to jam everything in. In 2023, attention spans are very low. So being able to raise that and show awareness to people about the importance of understanding that as we get older, we do lose cognitive ability and cognitive function. Especially if you play a contact sport as well, it does not add to it.
Yeah. Now, what are some of the practical steps that you take to teach them, just like elementary school or, kind of teaching kids how to sit down, how to stay in a straight line and stuff like that. And what you do, how do you really develop that process through what you do? And on average, say, you know, if I came in as an athlete, middle school, high school, how long would it take me to really start to get some of those concepts?
Yeah. So I use different grids, right? The grids that I use, it's called the Stroop test. You ever heard of the Stroop test?
I haven't.
So what the Stroop test does, it assesses your ability to handle instinctual solution by giving you a distraction and offering you something that you have to second guess what you're thinking and then understand this is the solution. So for instance, it's a grid of words and the words are going to be colors. So it'll be red, blue, yellow, green.
Yes.
But the color of the word would be different than what the word says.
Yes.
So red would be yellow, green would be blue, blue would be green, and then you'd have to say the color of the word.
Yes.
Right? So being able to process that information and understand what you have to second guess your instinctual solution slows things down, right? Because as athletes, we want to give our solution based off experience, right? We want to say, this is what to do. So if an athlete does something wrong in a game, right? And we go and watch film and I say to the athlete, what'd you do wrong? They're going to be able to tell me in a heartbeat. So you didn't do something wrong because you didn't know the answer, because you're telling me that you know the answer. You did something wrong because something happened in the blink of an eye. And your instinctual solution was to do X when you needed to do Y. How can we make it less of a panic situation for you so you can understand to pull that nugget of information out and say, this is the proper solution, right? And as I said before, it's knowing your athletes. It's being able to understand how my athlete learns, right? In terms of any work that you do in training, you're going to get better the more you do it, right? The two main things that keep people from getting better with cognitive training is frustration and boredom, right? People get bored because it's too easy. People get frustrated because it's too hard. So proper programming finds that sweet spot of I'm not frustrated, but I'm not bored. It's challenging enough to where I have to work, but it's not so easy to where I'm not getting adaptation.
Yeah.
So it's up to me as the coach to understand where my athlete's at in the program and then put them in a position to be successful.
Yeah. Now, do you work with just football players or do you work with a range of athletes?
Range of athletes.
And do you only work with athletes?
No, actually. So I do virtual sessions as well. And in my virtual sessions, I keep analytics on the drills that I do. And the drills that I do challenge those cognitive functions. So being able to track and scan, being able to understand decisions in panic situations, memory, and focus. And then I keep analytics on what I do to not only track progression, but to give us a standard for the day. Right? So if an athlete normally gets 40 seconds on a drill and they come to me and they get 55, it opens up the conversation of how are you sleeping? How are you eating? Right? When training an athlete, and this is for all coaches, when training an athlete, it's not I'm a one size fits all.
Yeah.
Right? I have a team of people that I know in my network that I'm able to discuss things with as we all grow. Our main goal as a coach, put our athletes on a platform to succeed.
Right.
If I don't know something, I have a friend who's great at his craft that does.
Right.
Right? So being able to have that network and expand the conversations to make sure the athlete that we're training is in the proper positions for their training cycle is huge for the athletes.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's really good. And how do you deal with fears? Like, is there athletes that have certain fears either in the game or they have a mental block, or they feel like, when they're playing their sport, I'm always on the short end of things, which, causes me to freeze up more or not be able to execute or make some of those decisions, less of the right decisions that I know, but more of the ones that feel quote unquote safe. Do you deal with a lot of that? And if you do, what are some ways that you kind of help them, understand and break some of those fears?
Yeah. So Fear is the idea of being scared of something that might happen.
Yeah.
We don't know if it's going to happen.
Right.
But it petrifies me because I'm putting myself in a position to think that this might happen. So I tell my athletes, you're watching a movie that may never come to theaters, right? And you're playing these scenarios over in your head. How do we negate those scenarios? Confidence. How do we build confidence up? Success in drills, doing the right drill, challenging them, giving them positive affirmation, not coddling. I don't baby my athletes by any means. But if they do something great, I'm going to let you know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's good. Because in gymnastics, one of the big things we deal with a lot of times with our athletes is fears, right? And what you said is what I tell them a lot of times is in the sport of gymnastics, there's a lot of risk for injury or things to not go right. You can fall off the balance beam, you could twist your ankle, you could have a bad ball and you get lost in the air. You can be on bars and hit the bars. There's a lot of scenarios, that could happen. A majority of the time, it doesn't happen, right? And a lot of the injuries that do occur are usually freak accidents. Like you're walking onto the floor, roll your ankle. You're doing plyometrics, you jump down and boom, your ankles go. Or you just jump in the air, you land and boom, your ankles go. Or you do something, a skill that you've done 30 gazillion times, and on one turn, just because it's muscle memory at the time, you fall and something occurs, right? And or even watching somebody else's have something happen to somebody else's, and they adopt those fears, because of what they saw happen to someone else, and it doesn't have anything to do with them. And the last piece is, even when someone talks about their fear out loud, which this probably is not going to be a popular thought, but I don't necessarily think it's a good thing if you're in a group training to talk about your fear in a way where it's out loud to where other people could end up adopting it. Because sometimes it becomes contagious. And before you know it, you have Jeffrey and Sally and Gary and whatever, they're killing it. And next thing you know, you hear maybe myself just complaining and saying, hey, I'm so nervous, I'm this and that. And all of a sudden you hear Gary start to talk about it. And then you hear Sally start to talk about it. And then next thing you know, you're like, hey, what's going on? Just because someone put it out there out loud, and now other people are adopting a fear that has nothing to do with them,
Yeah, absolutely.
And how having to deal with those things and how to deal with those things, and how does your drills address some of those types of scenarios?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I'll train athletes that don't like to drop stuff, right? Short-term memory. If you drop it, we go, we keep going. We get successes out of it. And then, not for nothing, a lot of the drills I do, it looks easy on Instagram. Very hard to do, right? And it takes a lot of work and focus and patience. And you get past the point of not wanting to fail, and you get over that hurdle of, I want to succeed, right? At the end of the day, for any athlete, any CEO, whatever you do, you have to want the moment. That's first and foremost. You have to want to have that moment. You have to want to be the star of your movie.
Right.
Right? You're writing your book. You're the main character. You have to own that and want that.
Right.
Right? That's the first step that anybody should have to take is I want that moment. If the game's on the line, I want to be the one they throw to. I want to be the one they choose to make a play. Once you have that, Spider-Man said it best. Well, Spider-Man's uncle, I should say. With great power comes great responsibility.
Right.
Right? If you want that moment, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with it, and you're going to fail.
Yeah.
Right? The line to any success story always starts off with failure. It always starts off with some type of, tribulation you had that got you to that point. Some people play their best game after their worst game.
Yeah.
Right? So it's all about that short-term memory and understanding that a failure does not define you. A failure does not define your journey. Failing is a part of the journey. It's a part of the process. There's going to be one day where all you talk about is your journey. and the process. And those failures you're going to laugh at because that's what made you who you are today.
Right.
Right.
No.
So it's accepting failure. I want to long-winded accept the failure.
Yeah. And I believe in that too, man. And I tell my athletes, you know, you're going to, especially in our sport, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, right? And it's okay. It's just an opportunity to learn. And I
Yep.
don't necessarily tell them because again, yes, they are making mistakes and failing, but I try to spin it to where it's an opportunity to learn. If something went wrong, why did it go wrong? And how can I make sure it doesn't go wrong again? You know, when we get into a place where we stop asking that question and we just accept that it went wrong, it's going to be very hard for us to get out, right? You have to find a way out. You can't just go, all right, I'm going to accept it. Well, you know, I just am bad at this. Hey, I'm terrible at this drill. I just don't get it, you know? And going back to those two things of frustration, right? And rather than becoming more frustrated, trying to figure out the process, which really would help you later, they're just like, it's better just to be done. You know, I'm already at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, started at the bottom and I'm staying here, you know,
Yep.
instead of really trying to level up, you know?
No, absolutely. It's crazy because I tell my friends, my athletes, it's very easy to wake up and say, I wonder what bad's going to happen today. How many people wake up and say, today might be the best day of my life? Right? You get out, you get in what you put out.
Right.
You know? And it's much easier said than done. We all have bad days.
Right.
Right? And this is where I talked to you before. This is that EQ in training and coaching and understanding emotional intelligence for athletes and relating to them. It's okay to have a bad day. You're not supposed to. I get it if you're not there today for training mentally. We're going to get there. We're going to get over that hurdle. But I understand and I'm with you. Yeah. You know, you're not alone in your thought process towards this. You know, and then having a lot of my drills be as challenging as they are, it gives athletes that ability to fail and to have short-term memory about it and get over it.
Yeah. And when athletes are dealing with complaining about stuff, how do you deal with that?
I don't. There's no complaints in a Coach J session. And we don't complain. It's a happy, good feel session. Complaints are left at the door, right? When you're there to work, you're there to work. And, you know, complaints don't exist in a session with me. It's, there's no room for it. It's a non-negotiable for me, you know, a non-negotiable. I'm not here to listen to complaints. I don't want to listen to complaints. It's really about like, I'm here to get better. I'm here to get you better. And we're here to get better, right? We're going to continuously grow. And the complaints, you leave that for that at-home stuff, you know?
Right.
As soon as you walk through that door for a Coach J session, we're getting to work. And we're going to have a good time doing it. We're going to fail today, right? We're going to drop things today. We're going to get things wrong on the grid. But we're going to finish the session feeling accomplished. Yeah. We're going to finish the session. You're leaving me saying, I did something today.
Right. And how do you help the athletes who may hold on to that? You know, the ones who may hold on to their failures. And because of that, they show up at a session and they don't give it their all because at least they could say, I didn't try my hardest. So at least there was room for me to fail instead of knowing that I pushed it my best and I still failed. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, this is where programming 101 comes in play. It's knowing a drill to do to challenge an athlete. I'm not here for successes. I'm here for end growth. The end result's going to be growth, but I'm not here to stroke success ego the entire session. I'm here to challenge you and work, right? So if I see you're doing something too good, I'm adding a variable. I'm changing the drill up. So for instance, we talked about the cards before. I'll do a drill where I hold up 2 cards and it's cut to the higher card, right? If you're doing that good, okay, cool. Cut to the higher card now while saying the lower card out loud. And now we start to add that challenge into it and those variables into the drill where you have to fail and you can't think about your failing or complaining about failing because all you're saying to yourself is, I want to get this right. I can't believe I can't do this. Majority of athletes that do a session with me for the first time go, you make me feel like I'm not an athlete. And we always laugh about it because they're failing at minuscule things that they seem or deem to be easy. but it's not easy if you don't do it. And I tell people all the time, it's only the first verse. We have a whole song to go. Like, you're good. You're going to get it. And it's about positive affirmation. You know, it's a good balance between, I'm not going to hear your complaints, but we are going to, you know, celebrate your successes, right? That's not going to go undone. Like, if you do something great, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to be just as excited about it as you are. We're doing this together.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's great. In life lessons, you know, we've mentioned some of them already, but what is your ultimate life lesson that you're trying to get through to those athletes or even the coaches that you work with?
Write your story. Write your story. It's your book, and not everyone's going to want to read it. And that's okay. You know, Write your story though. And your stories, it's a never ending story. You know, like, problems are perception, right? What you deem to be a problem today may be the same exact reason why you're great tomorrow. And it's all about your story, you know? And I tell people all the time, I tell coaches I coach, athletes that I train, be you. When I coach coaches, I don't coach them to be Coach J. I coach them to be the best versions of themselves. I'll give you the methodologies about how I do it, but do it the way you do it, because I may learn something from you. You know, I may gain something from how you do something. I'm always telling coaches this all the time. Like, this is your creative control. Like, do what you want with it. It excites me to put a coach in a position to say I can create something and then to see what that artwork comes out as.
Yeah. How do you deal with, you know, hard parents, you know, parents who may question your training methods or question the results that their athlete is getting under you? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, for any coach that has to deal with parents, there's only so much you can do, right? We're not going to be for everybody. Everybody's not going to be for us. You know, otherwise there wouldn't be so many coaches out there, you know, and I had to learn that the hard way. In my early coaching career, if someone didn't want to train with me, I'm rattling my brain for 3 weeks of why not, why not, why not? Now, it just may not be a good fit. And I tell people all the time, if you don't want to train, like, hey, I appreciate you giving me the time to show you what my training is. Now just may not be a great time. If in the future you want to train, I look forward to getting started.
Yeah.
You know, it's all a timing thing sometimes. And then it's educating. You know, it's educating the parents just as you educate the kids on what you're doing, how you're doing it, how it's going to be beneficial. And then you do this for long enough, you start getting social proof.
Right.
You know, you get your social proof. You're visually seeing not only in the drills is your son or daughter getting better, but when they play in their game now. You know, like, I train CEOs of companies and I'll do stuff with them virtually. And they call my virtual sessions the coffee for their day. Because it gets them awake. It puts them in a focused atmosphere. It puts them in a competitive atmosphere. And it gets them going for the day. Right? It's all about a feel thing. And sometimes, again, the athletes will speak for you. If mom or dad doesn't see it or like it, but the athlete loves to be around you and they love the training, they're going to tell mommy and daddy what they want.
Yeah. Now, how do you deal with coaches who may see your methodologies and be like, okay, I don't really agree with that, or they try to question, or even with sometimes when you have an athlete that goes to certain schools and their coaches may not want them to do outside training or trainings that you may offer? How do you deal with both of those scenarios?
Yeah, honestly, as laissez-faire as this is, it is what it is. You know, again, if you don't like the way that I train, God bless you. I have no judgment on you or how you train. My time is spent, my energy is spent putting towards my athletes. I don't put my energy towards other coaches or what they're doing. As a coach, if you are not injuring your athlete, I'm all for you. I'm all for you. I'm all for what you do, how you do it. I want you to win. Winners want to see others win.
Right.
And that's that fitness roundtable professionals that I talked about before, of putting like-minded individuals together that just want our athletes to win.
Yeah.
Right? If you can tell me why you're doing something, I applaud it. If you don't like what I do, don't come to a Coach J session.
Yeah. What are some nuggets that you can give that I could relate to, you know, gymnastics in particular? What cognitive things that I could start now, or coaches could start now with their athletes to kind of help them become better or even sharper at what they do, in the sport of gymnastics based off of the knowledge that you,
Yeah,
that you
absolutely. Gymnastics is a very mental sport,
have. Correct.
right? When I say mental sport, I mean it's a battle in your head because it's you versus you when you're doing your event, you know? So being able to understand and hone in that focus and not let it spread out to different scenarios that may not happen, and focus on the training that you've done, the work that you put in, and the moves that you have to do for said event, it's going to be a focus, a memory, and a not panic thing. So for any gymnast I should say, that's going to do cognitive training or wants to get into it, right? Understanding to put your focus in and be able to focus longer will be of great benefit to you. Because again, honing in on that superpower of focus and not, as you spoke before, looking at the other person doing an event, getting in your head, you know, being able to not start to wander of what if. Just do, you know, and then own that moment, want that moment. Again, it's your book, write it.
Yeah. And what range of athletes do you work with? How young to how old, and how novice to how professional, you know, or do you get to the professional? Because I know off camera we talked about it a little bit, but also to kind of tell the viewers and the listeners.
Yeah. So, I mean, in the sports I've trained and I do it all, you know, from basketball to baseball to soccer to pickleball, ping pong, bowling, you name it. I've trained the athlete in the sport one time or not. And then in terms of ages, 7 to 50, right? It's really, there's no age gap on, I tell people all the time when parents ask me, like, how young do you train an athlete? I was like, listen, if the athlete's motivated and they want to come to a session, they're going to work, they can, I'm all for it. You could be 3, you know, it's really being able to just, can you focus in a session? If you can, I'll take care of the rest. I got you. And that's what marks a good coach. It's being adaptable to who the athlete is in front of you. It's knowing your personnel. It's being able to give a service to somebody no matter what, as long as they have that winner mentality. As long as they have that I want to get better mentality, I'm the coach for you.
Yeah. And what are some resources that people could go to? Like, is there any books that you have read, or is there any speakers or any coaches that you have, you know, followed on their journey that you taken nuggets from, or consistently kind of that people could access if they can't always access you, you know, to be able to start to learn a little bit more about cognitive training and different methods that you're using to train athletes?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, you can always go on my social media. And on my social media, I have my website. You can go there. You can learn more about cognitive training, what I do. You'll see athlete testimonials, and it talks about how it's helped them along their journey. In terms of multidirectional training, Lee Taft, he was a mentor of mine, I want to say a couple years ago. He taught me the understanding of what multidirectional training actually is. And I've taken a bunch of nuggets from him on my journey with this. And in terms of books, this is one of my favorite ones. It Takes What It Takes.
By Russell Wilson, or forwarded by Russell Wilson, by Trevor. How do you say his last name? Mowad?
Yeah, that's how I would say it.
Perfect.
But also, too, don't limit yourself to just, you know, motivational books, right? I love autobiographies. I love learning about people's lives and trials and tribulations they had to go through, and understanding, again, that athletes are not, we're all people.
Yeah.
Right? The more you can understand that we're all people, the more people you're going to connect with. And then you start connecting the dots. And that's when people want to be around you. That's where you start shedding light as a coach and impacting.
No, I think that's really important. Like you said, the connection, because in anything, that's what you're really trying to do, right? In any market that you're in, is really learning people, learning how to connect to people. And I've heard this said, in you know, if you pay attention, if you watch a Coca-Cola commercial, how much of the Coca-Cola commercial are they talking about the product itself? They're not, right? They put a story in there that kind of has the Coca-Cola. So like, say this cup, right, is my Coca-Cola cup, or my wooden whatever. Instead of just saying, hey, this can keep your, you know, your hot drinks hot. This can keep your cold drinks cold, blah, blah, blah. if I just put this cup here, right, and yet there's life that's happening and some people are like drinking out of it, be like, oh man, that was so refreshing. Or someone else grabs their own and be like, oh yeah, that hot chocolate, was so good when I was in New York, blah, blah, blah. That makes you want to buy this because of the story and the connections that you see that people are making and result in revolving around this cup or the Coca-Cola, right? And learning how to do that with what you do instead of selling, hey, I'm a gymnastics coach, this and that. I'm a person who loves people. And that's my biggest thing when I talk to athletes or talk to people in general is I could, and this probably sounds bad, but I could care less about like all the skills and all that other stuff. I want to make a connection between the people, right? And that's what motivates me, drives me, is seeing what you can do as a person, how you can get better. And I'm going to use the tool of gymnastics, the skills, the drills, and all that stuff to really achieve that. And I'm not looking to achieve accolades off of what you're going to do. I want you to achieve the accolades that you want to achieve. And whatever I receive because of the work that I do, cool, but I'm not chasing that. If I go and I chase that, I'm going to end up dragging you because that might not be where you are needing to go or even want to go. And if I drag you along for my own pleasure, I'm doing you a disservice, right?
Correct.
And
absolutely.
And how you mentioned, if you're not injuring, I would also add, if you're not, breaking them down, or doing it for selfish gain, then I think, most coaches, respect what you do, right? Because the other aspect, and when you're talking about the cognitive aspect is, or even just the mental aspect, is making sure that you have athletes or people that you're working with that are healthy mentally as well and emotionally. Yes. You don't want to have your trainings be where you're beating them down and they're failing and stuff, and you're making it a point. Like, dude, you suck at this, man. Come on, pick up your feet. Or hey, are you serious? You can't push through your toes anymore. Like, now they're failing. Now they're feeling beat down instead of, hey, all right, let's try to do this a little bit more, or hey, all right, this kind of tells me where your capacity is right now. So what are things that we can do to build, a little bit more room for capacity? So now when we attack this drill again, you're able to attack it the way it's designed, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you being on the podcast and kind of sharing your insights. Is there anything that you would like to leave the listeners and viewers to kind of learn more about you or what you do, or just anything that you think that they should know?
Yeah, I mean, so if you're a coach out there and you coach athletes, always understand, again, our job is to put our athletes on a platform to succeed, right? How we do that is going to be how we do that, right? The methods, I don't judge. But that's first and foremost our main goal always. Put our athletes on a platform to succeed. Athletes out there, if you're an athlete, it's okay to fail, right? Accept the failure. Embrace the failure. That failure is what's going to make you and get you to that next level of growth and success. And you're going to have that one play that you make, that one moment in a game, that shining time where you're going to say, this was worth it. Right? And when you say this was worth it, you're going to think back to those failures, and then all in all, it's a great day for a great day, right? Have that mentality, have that mantra. It is a great day for a great day. Any day we get to wake up and have a chance to be great, it's blessed.
Yeah, absolutely. And one last thing I want to ask you before I close it off is, how often do you speak the future into an athlete based off of what you see? And even though they're not there yet, to be able to encourage them. And in examples, there's times where I see where an athlete is already at, but they don't realize that they're at. Like for a gymnast, say they have a skill that they're training and other things have shown me they possess that skill already, even though they haven't put it out into fruition. How often do you speak that into them to kind of help them realize it? And then once they do, be like, hey, remember when we talked about this? And even if it might be 6 months down the line, to encourage them that what you saw before is the truth of what is to come or what is presenting itself right now.
Yeah, I mean, I do that all the time. I trained a little kid 2 weeks ago, and I saw him catch 2 tennis balls one time. That's all I needed to see. And I looked at his mom, I was like, he's going to be great. I was like, this is going to be a fun program going forward. Because I can just see already how adaptive an athlete is to a drill, or how they take to dropping something, or how they take to the failure, how quick they react to something. And I've been doing this for a long time now, where I have a lot of analytics and a lot of experience with training with thousands of athletes to know, like, when I see an athlete do a drill, I've seen this so many times before, I know where you can get to. And I'll speak that to them and I'll say it. And the one thing about me that I pat myself in the back about, my energy is unmatched, in terms of I can really light up a room and light up an athlete. That's my gift, being a light in this world is my gift, and I embrace it. I have a tattoo. It says the two most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. Right? I've learned my why, and I magnify it now. I celebrate successes, and I'm able to look at an athlete and say, you are going to be great. And they believe me. Yeah. I'm not lying when I say it, but they feel me when I say it. They understand that energy when I say, you are going to be great. And it's like, wow, like, I know Coach Jay's worked with this person, this person, this person. The fact that he's saying I'm going to be great, like, I'm going to be great. Confidence is key.
Yeah. No, and I think, this gives me another follow-up question is how to also be able to not, promise certain things that may not come, right? Because potential means that it hasn't yet become what it is, right? It's what it can become. But potential is not the actual result of where it actually is. If someone tells me, hey, you have the potential to be a professional athlete, it doesn't mean I'm a professional athlete yet. I have to get to that point, right? Is there times where you're also having to not promise where they are going to be, because again, there's a factor of what work they are going to do and what other circumstances or situations that could be. So then they don't come back and say, hey, Coach Jay said that I'm going to be this is this and this and that. And when they don't, now they're going to blame you.
Yeah. I think that when you tell someone you're going to be great, it's loaded. I don't just mean great in your sport. I mean, based off of the work that you're doing, the character that you're building, you may not be great in the way you think it's going to be great, but you will impact somebody. If it's not yourself, it's going to be somebody else. And when you do that, it'll all click and make sense. I had to go through that myself and understanding, not knowing the when. When was the greatness going to come? And then all of a sudden you realize that you're impacting a culture, you're impacting a generation, you're impacting athletes. And you're like, that's my why. That's what that person meant about you're going to be great. Everyone has an idea about what great is, but that changes yearly. My great this year is not going to be my great next year, right? So I think as coaches, choose your words wisely. Don't make promises, but also too, let your athletes know they're going to be great, especially when they have a great mentor like yourself, myself, or other great coaches out there assisting them.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of Heated Conversations. Please hit that subscribe button, and so that you get all the notifications of all the episodes. It was great having Jason on and talking about, cognitive training and how to encourage your athletes and how to be excited about it, but also learning your athletes and how to build proper training programs so that you can get the most out of your athletes. Also, leave comments, share, and like these videos. I'm super excited for where this goes and helping as many people as possible. Again, thank you for tuning into another episode of Heated Conversations. We'll see you on the next one.